There it is, guys, the Eachine Tyro69. It's all built up. I'm going to help you guys build one if you want to. You can check out the link down below and grab one of these for about $69. It's about the cheapest toothpick on the planet right now, but you have to build it yourself. We'll take a look inside the box and I'll show you what's inside the box for the build. I'll show you some of the things you will need for the build, and then we'll get right to the bench and build the Tyro69. Here we go. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's inside the box. First, you get four 1104 8600 kV motors, 20 amp ESCs, and an F411 flight controller from Eachine. Also a Cadex 1200 TVL camera and a 25 milliwatt VTX, TPU camera mount, a bunch of hardware, unibody frame with a 100mm wheelbase and 2mm thick carbon. You also might want to use some of these things like helping hands, some steel wool, some 6040 solder, a TS100, and a solder sucker. So let's go ahead and get started with the first step. Step one is just simply to go ahead and tin up your tabs for each motor tab right here. You're going to go through this process one at a time. It's pretty easy. You don't need to hold the TS100 there super tight or anything. Just pull away from the tab. Get it enough so it melts on the tab. You really don't need to hold it for very long or you'll separate the tab, especially on the small ones. And you're going to do the other side just like this. Now we're going to go on to step two, which is going to be soldering up your motor wires. And it doesn't matter which three wires you put to the tabs. There is no sort of correlation there. We can fix that inside BLheli, which I'll show you later. Now I have the first one done. Go ahead and give that a tug. That looks pretty good. Nice. So we're going to go ahead now and do the rest of them here, and we'll move on to step three, which is going to be tinning your XT30 wire. Go ahead and re-tin both of those because I'm not a big fan of the solder that comes out of China sometimes. So we'll go ahead and do the positive lead on the left hand side. If it's facing up, doesn't really say on the top side, so this is just so you guys know. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other side. Cool beans, all done. Now we're ready to move on to the next step. Just give that a tug real quick. Always give your stuff a tug. See if it's nice and solid. Now we're going to tin up each of the receiver wires here. And those go on just like this. Yellow here, that's your signal wire for S-Bus. And 5V here. And the ground is over here on this side. A little bit longer than I'd like them to be, but that'll work. So now we're going to put our receiver down on the body itself. Grab yourself a piece of VHB. VHB, just stick it down just like that. Receiver on the bottom. We're going to bind this up before we close up the whole thing as well. So go ahead and put your strap through. If you don't put your strap through now, you might not be able to get this strap through later. Now we're going to go ahead and plug in the main board to the ESC. So grab that harness, pins up, plug that in. We can move on to step 7, which is bridging that S-Bus tab right there. Your S-Bus won't work unless you do that. So now we can go ahead and we can plug in the receiver to this port over here. And those are also pins up, just 3 pins right there. Pretty easy. Now we're going to move on to step 8, which is binding up your D16 receiver. Telemetry on 1 through 8. You'll hear your radio start beeping. And now go ahead and hold down that gold button on your FrSky XM Plus. Plug in a battery, and you should see a little tiny green light. You'll get still get a red flashing light, but it is bound up. So now we're going to go to step 9, which is going to be go ahead, put your long post through the frame. Now we're going to take 4 little grommets and go ahead and stick those on. And so far this is a pretty easy build. Now we're going to go ahead, once you've done that, you can put the ESC on there, the 4-in-1. This is looking pretty good. Now grab 4 more of your little grommets and start putting those on. And the flight controller is just going to sit right above that. You can tuck that ESC harness down just like that. And we can go ahead and slide the FC down. Make sure your arrow is facing the front. Now step 10, we're going to go ahead and put these rubber grommets on top of the FC itself. And for your camera wires and your VTX wire, I ran the camera wire down through the bottom and the VTX around the back. It was a little bit tight the other way around. We're going to plug those in just like you saw there. And now you can go ahead and start pushing that down. and it's a nice tight fit. Go ahead and grab one of your little tiny M2 nuts and put it on top right there. You don't have to twist it with your fingers very far. Just grab your Phillips head screwdriver and hold it from the top and start screwing it from the bottom there, and you'll be done with this step in no time. Get the next one there. We'll do all 4 of those. It should look something like this. Now we can go on to step 11, and that's going to be motor bolts. You want to put some Loctite on each one of these because they will vibrate out. And be careful when you're putting these on. I don't think that the hardware is all that great from Eachine, so if you overturn these, they will strip really easily. So just be careful when you're putting these on. And you're going to put all 4 motors on. Take some time. Step 12 is going to be some gaffer tape. I use 1-inch gaffer tape to secure my motor wires. It's kind of nice. You can find it on Amazon. I'll try to put a link down below for this below if I can find some for you guys. Just wrap it right around the arm right there. You're going to do all 4 arms, and you will not have any motor wires in the way. It's also to keep these secure, because these wires, if you move them at all, it will pop off the ESC. The wires are not really that good of quality. So now step 13, we're going to put zip ties on the arms facing outwards just like that. And we're going to run a receiver antenna along that zip tie, and we're going to heat shrink it down. We'll do the other side just like that. Looking pretty good. Wasn't so hard of a build, right? Now we're going to pinch at the very end and hold that antenna down, slide the heat shrink on, give it some heat, and I like to bend them down and away from the props so that they have kind of a natural set down toward the ground. That way we have no chance of it slipping up into the prop. And you can do that with your heat gun. So I'm going to apply a little bit of heat to this side. That's looking pretty good. And our build is pretty much finished. Pretty easy. So there it is. It's all done, you guys. You built your first Tyro69. Let's go ahead and weigh it. 51.8 grams. 80.3 with the 2S 500 milliamp. And with the 3S 300 milliamp from Eachine, it's even lighter. We're right around 77.9 grams. Not bad at all. So let's go ahead and jump into Betaflight for you guys that need some help with Betaflight setup. Go ahead and connect a data cable to your quad. And first thing you're going to do is you're going to check your orientation. So reset the Z-axis right there. Now move it back, side to side, and forward, just to make sure that you put your FC on the board right. Sometimes people will install it and they'll get it wrong. So let's go down to the ports. We have the UART1 serial RX checked right there. That's what we want. Now configuration. We're going to leave all this the same. That looks good there. That's right turn rear. That's your standard setup. And now turn off barometer. We don't need barometer on. Now let's see what else we have in here to change. We can change the arm angle to 180 right there. And we're going to make this Tyro69 for the personalization. That's going to show up as the name of your quad in your OSD. Now for receiver, SpecSat S-Bus and S-Bus there on that tab. And let's go check out the other features down here. All this looks pretty good. We're just going to leave all that on. And now for your D-Shot, we're going to turn that beeper on, or RX lost, so it'll beep if I lose signal. Save and reboot. Now we're going to come back in. Now let's check out some of these other tabs just to make sure that everything is good. So turn on expert mode. Power and battery, we're going to reduce that down to about 2.9 and 3 there. Go ahead and save that. Failsafe, set to drop. PID tuning, all looks good. We're even going to leave these super rates the same at 7.0 all the way across. Now the receiver, you can go ahead and turn on your radio at this point. You shouldn't have to plug in a battery. If you don't see anything moving, that means you might need to rebind it. Now we're going to check all the channel maps. Everything should go the directions that you're seeing here, up and down with the throttle. Now we're going to check my aux1, that's my big switch, and my mode switch, aux1 and aux2. aux3 will be for the beeper. Now AETR on there for that setup. Now let's go ahead and move these around. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to slide that backwards there for position 1, and we're going to slide this over. And you can also move over those little white tabs, just drag those over a little neater. Now we have an arm switch and we have angle. You want to check to see that these are moving. That little gold bar right there should move back and forth when you move your switch. If not, you have some work to do in your radio. So now the angle, that's my mode switch. Angle mode is set. That's stability mode for you guys that don't know that. We just added a range for horizon, so now we have horizon mode there. And now you can see it's working. The switch is lighting up gold when I move the switch. And now the last one out here, floating, that's acro. So you don't have to actually add any type of range for acro. They don't even have anything called acro in here, so kind of confusing to the new guys, but that's the way it works. So now we'll add another range for the beeper. I'm going to slide that all the way out to the edge, so that'll be position 3 on my switch all the way down for my aux 3. And if you get confused, you can go back to the receiver and look at your switches in the receiver tab, and that'll show you what aux your switches are on. So now we're going to set up some OSD here, and typically I like to have flight timer 2 on. You can drag and drop things here where you want on the screen, and you're going to have to open up your goggles and make sure that things are right before you go out and fly with your OSD, because sometimes it could be cut off at the bottom, and if you don't see any OSD, sometimes you just have to simply move things up a few clicks, a few spaces on the OSD window. And let's add the main battery voltage. I like to usually have it down there on the bottom left. And what else could I add on here? Let's see, we'll add the craft name down in the middle here. That looks good. I'm just going to move that over here. That's our throttle, how much percentage of throttle we have, and I'll scooch this over to the right just a little bit, and that's our flight mode. Now we're going to hit save, and we're good there. Now we can go down to the CLI. We're just going to check the version on here. To do that, you can just type in version, very simple. It'll show you what version you're on. So now we're all done with the setup, but if you had one motor spinning the wrong direction, you're going to need to go into BLheli. So go ahead and plug in a battery, hook up your USB cable, and you will see this. Now my motor number 2 was backwards, so I need to reverse that one. And to check it on the bench, you can put your props on, momentarily flick your arm switch, but be very quick with it so it doesn't fly up and hit you, but be very careful doing that. Okay, so now we're done there, and I've reversed it. And that's pretty much all there is to building the Tyro69. Not too bad. Alright guys, let's go ahead and do the flight test. We're going to start out today on that 2S battery, and we're just going to rip around a little bit, but I'm going to take it easy, honestly, for this first battery. So whenever I do a build, most of the time, I'm not sure what the quad's going to do for the first battery. It might drop out of the air somewhere close in or far out, and I usually take my time and gradually work up into higher throttles. I started out in stability mode. Now I'm into acro mode, feeling it a little more, just kind of going really easy on it, because it's an Eachine build, and a lot of times my Eachine builds, they have worked or they have not worked. So I'm happy to say that this one didn't give me any ESC problems. I didn't have any clicking motors. I didn't have any problems with the setup. The build was really fast. You can do this in under a half an hour. You can get this thing soldered up. It's super quick to build. So for the new guys, this one is pretty easy to get started. Even solder up your own receiver, not a big deal. This has the least amount of soldering of any kit I've seen recently. So now we're going to try that 3S battery. This is cool. 1104 on 3S is pretty fun, but honestly it's going to need some tuning. You can see some vibration there on that hard turn, and you know, that's what I try to do. I try to put in some high throttle to get these things to trip up or vibrate, but anywhere above like 30% throttle I was getting vibes on the 3S battery. So that's what you need to know here. It's going to need a definite tune on 3S. So I wasn't really super stoked on the 3S on this quad. If I were you, I would just start out with a bunch of 2S batteries with the Tyro69 and work your way up. Once you get used to 2S, try to find a good tune for it on 3S, and then put it on there, and then buy your 3S batteries later. Don't even worry about 3S batteries to begin with. So now I'm back on the 2S battery, and this is where I had the most fun. And I was really wondering if it could do a low power loop. So I'm going to try it here. Went a little higher than I normally would, and ended up doing a big one, but we made it back. And the grass is all wet down there, so if I make any mistakes again, I'm going to fry this thing today. But luckily for me, I had a good flight test with it. Nice big power loops. No problem with the power loops. And it feels really locked on the yaw axis. Feels really nice and tight. I think the tune on the 2S, the numbers on here for the PIDs are pretty decent. Lots of control. The rolls and flips feel good. Power loops are good. Even low to the ground like this. Kiss the ground right there, not too bad. Back up and around. I gotta try that one again. I love doing the power loops with micros around little trees. It's kind of fun, low to the ground. Pretty hard to do this with a big 5-inch. So you can really learn a lot with a micro brushless. Just get out there and start throwing the sticks around and learn acro. So it's pretty responsive. I'm liking the way it feels on the 2S battery. I wish they'd had a little better tune on here for 3S, but then again, we can't have everything with this build. Mostly we have a really good build here. Something that can be built in under 30 minutes is pretty crazy. And you can get out there and fly. I mean, it might even be comparable to the Cube series as far as the flying characteristic goes. There we go, through my legs. Taking some chances today. But overall, I think it flies awesome. So let's go ahead and give some final thoughts and rating for this quad. Here we go. Alright guys, there you go, all in one video. That is the Tyro69. You saw the build, the setup inside Betaflight, the BLheli reverse motor. Go in there, reverse your motors. And we took you out for a flight test, so pretty much everything all in one video here for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the flight test. I think that it did great on 2S. The 3S battery still yet seems to need some tuning, and I'll try to work on that for you guys coming up in the next couple weeks. But you can grab my CLI dump down below for yours if you want to flash it with mine. You can also go through the Betaflight setup in this video as well and set yours up the way this one's set up. And also guys, I'm gonna have to say that the overall durability of this one checked out pretty good. I'm gonna say I would say in the range of 3.9 out of 5. It's pretty good. It's not like most durable thing I've ever seen in my life. It is a 2mm frame. It does feel rigid. The way they have it braced in the middle doesn't feel like it's going to break. The motors aren't overly heavy, so they're probably not going to break. But one thing you want to watch out for, and maybe put a zip tie on and some heat shrink around, is this dipole antenna right here. You want to reinforce this so that it doesn't snap off from the VTX. One other thing I think is pretty good about this quad is the performance. So I'm going to say the performance on here with 1104s and the 2S 450 milliamp battery give me about 3 minutes flight time. I would say it would be somewhere in the range of 4.5. So not bad coming from Eachine actually. So I think it flies good. You're safe to fly this one and learn freestyle with it. If you're a beginner, start out in that stability mode, work your way up to acro through horizon. And you can have a lot of fun with this one. The other thing is that I guess the one thing that I would like to see on here that would be a little bit better is maybe a little bit better camera and VTX. I feel like the camera and the VTX could be a little better. I feel like the same wires were used in the previous Tyro 99 style motors that had those really stiff wires on there, and they will snap off of these ESCs. If you just move them a tiny bit, the wire is really cheap, so it will break off and you'll have to resolder it on again. So that's one drawback. So that leads me to my overall rating, and my overall rating for this one is going to be an honest rating of around a 4.2. It's not a 5-star quad by any means. It's not a terrible quad by any means as well, but then again, it's not the perfect quad either. So some changes could be made in the future iterations of this type of kit, but it's only going to get better and better. And for $69, I can't be a huge whiner and complainer. So that got me up in the air and flying under $100. Thanks again for watching my reviews, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Please do click subscribe and that notification bell down below so you can know when the new videos are coming out. Tyro69. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.